Can I start the video just the same way I did last carbon Wi-Fi motherboard? Well, I'm gonna do that anyway. In terms of carbon Wi-Fi motherboards, what I expected so far was outstanding boards with outstanding performance. This time we're going to talk about the MSI MPG X870E carbon Wi-Fi paired up with the AMD Ryzen 7 9800 X3D. And this, as you already know, the processor is just simply amazing in all terms regarding the performance, gaming, and everything else. But we've seen the prices lately. So yeah, that's a bit of a different story, because when you have loads of people actually wanting a product, the prices go up, unfortunately. And definitely where Intel didn't perform, AMD is doing an incredible job. So today we're going to take a look at this motherboard paired up with this processor and give you some benchmarks in terms of synthetic and a bit of a gaming, just to give you some heads up what you've most likely seen everything already, but just to give my take on it. The board features 5G LAN, Wi-Fi 7 solution, USB 40 gigabit per second, supplemental PCI power, and their latest easy do-it-yourself design. Specifically, MPG series stands for MSI Performance Gaming Series, which goes for the boards that have strong performance and slick design. And I totally agree, because literally every carbon Wi-Fi board that I had was just immaculate when we're talking about the design, first and foremost, but then performance as well. Discussing performance and thermals, we have huge extended VRM passive heatsink with heat pipes for better cooling. Then we're having 7 watts to meter Kelvin MOSFET thermal pads, all cooling down 18 plus 2 plus 1 phases VRM power. We have 4 double-sided M.2 shield frozer almost connected with the enlarged chipset heatsink. Then we have 8-layer server-grade PCB with 2 ons thickened copper. To go more into details, we're having 18-phase V-Core power SPS 110 amperes, the 2-phase SoC power, and 1-phase MISC power. For CPU, we have two 8-pin CPU power connectors, so two EPS, also core boost and digital power. With these components, this board can with ease tackle high-end CPUs as per usual for carbon boards in general, let's be honest. So the board supports AMD Ryzen 9000, 8000, 7000 CPUs with DDR5 memory dual channel at 8400 MHz. But to be honest, discussing the memory clock speeds and the AMD processors in general, you only benefit around 6000 to 6400 megahertz tops. So everything above that is totally, well, I wouldn't say useless, but just irrelevant in those terms. It kind of, what I did with benchmarks, I get the same results having 8000 megahertz clock speed and 6000, 6400, 6000 or 6400 megahertz. It's just literally the same. So basically, this is what I usually do. I went with 6400 megahertz in this benchmark, as I did with 7900 X3D, and yeah. For ease do-it-yourself features, we have ease PCIe release with a click on a button. The ease M.2 Shield Frozer 2, ease M.2 Clip 2, and finally ease antenna. The board is boosted with PCI Gen 5.0 slot and also Lightning Gen 5 M.2. Then we have USB 4 and 5G LAN in combination with 2.5G LAN and Wi-Fi 7 solution. First PCI slot is 5.0 times 16 from the CPU, second one is 5.0 times 4 from the CPU, and the third one is PCIe 4.0 times 4 from the chipset. First and second M.2 slots are PCIe 5.0 times 4 from the CPU, while the third and fourth PCIe are 4.0 times 4 from the chipset. Now for the audio, we have Realtek ALC 4080 codec with 7.1 channel USB high performance audio, which supports up to 32-bit 384 kHz playback on the front panel, and it supports SPDIF output. For the internal I/O ports, we have one power connector, so that's 24-pin. We have two power connectors to 8-pin EPS. One power connector for the PCIe power 8-pin that goes at the bottom part of the motherboard, one CPU fan, one combo fan, which is pump and system fan. Then we have 5 system fan connectors, so those are all 4-pin PWM. Then we have one EESCON header, which is JAF2, 2 front panel jacks, one chassis intrusion jack, front audio, Thermal sensor connectors, 3 addressable V2 RGB LED connectors, 1 RGB LED connector, so that's 12 volts 4-pin, 4 USB 2.0 ports, 4 USB 5 gigabit per second Type A ports, and 1 USB 20 gigabit per second Type C port. For the back I/O ports, we have 6 USB Type A 10 gigabit per second, then HDMI, 2 USB Type C 40 gigabit per second, flash BIOS button, clear MOS button, smart button, then USB Type-C 10 gigabit per second, 2.5G LAN and then 5G LAN, 3 USB Type-A 10 gigabits per second, USB Type-C 10 gigabit per second, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antennas, 2 audio connectors and optical SPDIF. Now, when we're talking about connections in general, this motherboard is really packed, and I can actually compare it to the Z890, which actually this board has more USB and in general connections on the I/O ports and in general in the motherboard. The only downside, well, not a downside, but the only thing that I noticed is that the Z890 has 5 M.2 slots, this one has 4, so there's a difference. Now let's go in terms of benchmarks. Let's check out first synthetic, a bit of gaming, and finally make a conclusion, because the Ryzen 7 9800X3D is going to be quite interesting to see in synthetic benchmarks more, since you already seen loads of gaming without a doubt. And as you already know, we have 8-core 16 threads processor with 3D cache. So let's go. AIDA64 Extreme Edition system stability test. CPU went up to 68 degrees with clock speed 4847 MHz, and the GPU went up to 66. Then we go with Cinebench. The CPU was running first at 88, then it goes to 87, and it stays there throughout 10 benchmarks. Some average on the clock speed, 5027, and the scores were quite alright. I would say 21,670 80 on average. So the single thread score was 2066, and if we went with throttle testing for 10 minutes, the score was 21,653, 17 passes, CPU was at 88 degrees. Now to keep on the AIDA64 AES, this is interesting. It beats Ultra 9 to 85K. It goes up to 375,438 megabytes per second. That's like over 100,000 megabytes per second. It's insane. AIDA cache and system memory. I use Kings of Fury DDR5 RGB 2x16 at 6400 megahertz. We're having read speeds 96,570 megabytes per second, write speeds 84,265 megabytes per second, copy 93,296 megabytes per second, and latency 78.1 nanoseconds. That's quite solid, and there's nothing to discuss here. Then we go to Indigo benchmark. Now, if we go with Indigo benchmark, what we get is bedroom 2.968 million samples per second. Comparing it to others, it goes into some sort of mid-tier. Then we go with supercar, where the score is 6.809 million samples per second, which is close to the top. Corona 10, 7.8 million rays per second, which is really lower than 285K without a doubt, but it's quite logical. Corona 1.3, 63 seconds to finish the render, and it kind of goes a bit higher in the whole tier of processors with 7.6 million rays per second. Geekbench 6 single thread score is 3282, which is above Ultra 285K by 30 points, which is incredible. And then we go with multi-thread score, which is 18,196, and that we got above 7900 X3D, but beneath Ultra 285K. 3D Mark CPU profile, this is something not really impressive, but we're having less cores without a doubt, and you can see the difference compared to 285K and how it performs and everything all together. But if we go with 4, 2 and 1 core, it kind of goes and levels up a bit. Checking out 3D Mark in general, Time Spy Extreme 12,187 general score, which when you take a look at CPU and Time Spy, the regular one, it kind of does perform quite solid. Firestrike Ultra 17,538 with physics score and combined score really nicely placed. Firestrike Extreme 31,679 with both physics score and combined score again nicely. And then we have Firestrike, which goes up to 50,040 points, which is insane. And then we have physics score at 39,000 and combined score at 22,000. Now, this really is incredible performance. Jetstream 2, now this is quite interesting, neck to neck with Ultra 9 285K with 302,144. Then we go with East Bench, and you have that GPU particle and photogrammetry with 1080p, 1440p, and 2160p. Comparing it to Ultra 9 285K, we're getting 5 to 10% better results. Of course, in some benchmarks, 285K takes the win, but in general and in overall runs, we have 7900 X3D really going neck to neck and even surpassing 285K, since everybody proclaimed that Ultra 9 285K is more for workload and everything altogether. Then we go with PC Mark 10, which has interesting scores. So altogether score was 9922, Essentials 11,935, Productivity 12,091, Digital Content 18,369, which honestly, that's quite solid as well. For an 8-core processor, 16-thread, that is really good. And finally, we go with some gaming a bit, since I played these games in general for the Ultra 9 285K and 7900 X3D. We're having Assassin's Creed Valhalla, average 94 FPS, minimum is 32, and maximum is 240, which kind of struggles at this point. But we go then to F1 2023, 138 FPS, and it's somewhere there, but the minimum FPS is 61 and the maximum is 305. So it kind of goes better in the minimum and maximum, while the average is somewhere there. And then we start Deus Ex Mankind Divided, 39 on average, which is better than both of the mentioned processors, including minimum and maximum FPS. Spider-Man Miles Morales, 81, you can see that it gets loads of it, like almost 20 FPS advantage on Ultra 9 285K. Witcher 3, 91, which goes by almost 50, but it's 42, actually, sorry, 42 FPS better than the Ultra 9 285K, and I was actually shocked how smooth it was, because I didn't expect it. I actually had quite some stuttering with 285K. And then we go PUBG. PUBG average is 108, which beats Ultra 9, but it kind of goes in pair with 7900 X3D, which is a bit strange, but okay. Starfield definitely surpasses it, and Hogwarts Legacy, well, basically it goes and beats Ultra 9 to 85K. So in general, this is the build that I was using for benchmarking. This is the Fantex Eclipse G400A with quite nice AIO. We're talking about Glacier 1 360 M25G2, as well as all the other fans, which are also the Gen 2 version of everything, and basically an outstanding cooling inside this chassis, which actually gave quite nice airflow through the chassis and nice cooling towards the CPU, because in gaming it wasn't that high, but as you saw in synthetic benchmarks, it went from 80 to 88 degrees, and then again it's quite solid from AMD processors to actually have those kind of thermals. All in all, quite satisfied, as you already know, and you already seen a million videos regarding Ryzen 7 9800 X3D, but I wanted to pair it up with this outstanding board because, as I stated right at the beginning of the video, and I know what to expect from this type of board, that the MSI MPG X870E carbon Wi-Fi actually does perform quite well in all circumstances, keeping it quite stable and giving loads of features, even more than some of you or even me don't actually need. So all in all, big thumbs up for this duo, because this duo really is outstanding, and you'll be most likely seeing it quite often on the channel in general for other benchmarks and reviews and similar stuff like that. But before you go, there are a couple of links in the description, specifically for this CPU. So AMD Ryzen 7 1900 X3D, you can find the link in the description below, as well as for this motherboard, MSI MPG X870E carbon Wi-Fi. I don't think I have to talk too much about this combination and duo. And eventually, if you want to check out more, you can check out this build in general, because I have a dedicated video for this chassis, AIO, power supply, fans all together, and you can check it out right after this video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, click the notification bell, and I'll see you soon in another one. Bye bye.